I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight to the Glendale Community Council meeting. My name's Turner Bitton. I'm the chair here. Tonight's agenda, we have a couple of different items on the agenda. The first thing that I'd like to do, I see that Council Member Johnston has joined us, and I'd like to see if you'd like to go first, Councilman.
I'll do whatever you ask me to do, Turner.
Thank you.
There's some updates you'll hear later from the city on a few items. I'm not sure if the Three Creeks Confluence is one of those, but we have sent out some information in the last few weeks about the delays there, and we can get some more for you all. But the short answer to people's questions about what's happening is there was some changes in the upstream sort of water flow based on some construction upflow essentially. That meant there was going to be a larger sort of flow of water, which meant they had to decrease what they could do initially down there. And I think there was a delay, I was told, with the second bridge, the fishing pier. And so a combination of those factors seems like it's going to push off the completion until sometime next year. I hope the earlier the better. So that's why it seems slow there, because it is slow. The other thing that's happening right now, a couple updates. One is on the, for a number of years now, we've been talking about a 9-line community reinvestment area through their redevelopment area agency of Salt Lake City. That would be 9th West, some of California, some of 4th, from basically I-15 and then on Indiana out to 215. That is an agreement that's got to be reached between Salt Lake City School District and Salt Lake County to all share tax increment for 20 years. And Salt Lake City, as a council, we approved that formally last night. This school district approved it a little while ago, I think before COVID hit us, but the county has not. And there's some ongoing discussions with the county and the school district about their willingness to participate in that. Without everyone's willingness, it doesn't go forward, even though I think this has been on the docket since prior to 2016. So a ways back, probably 2014 and earlier. So there's some delay in that as well. We're still working on it. The other thing that is happening a lot now is a lot of talk about homelessness and other issues around the city. We've talked about that here before. There's a combination of factors hitting us this year. There is fewer beds for overnight shelter. That is since the old road home building downtown closed over a year ago now. So there's a lack of beds. That's part of it. COVID really hit everything hard. A lot of folks who are unsheltered tend to go to, say, the city libraries during the daytime. They have bathrooms there, obviously. They can spend their days there doing things. With those being shut during COVID, really folks are out on the street. And so it does appear like a lot more folks are homeless. There may be a slight uptick, but a lot more visible, essentially. And so it's been a struggle to ensure that there is public access to, say, toilets and those kind of things. Places to go if you're homeless, places to stay. So you've seen a lot of it downtown with camping on North Temple, Ballpark area on 13th, and a couple other places in the city. Generally in the summertime, it goes way up, the numbers on the street, and then in the wintertime it dives with the temperature dropping as well. We anticipate that'll happen again, and there's still plans to open an overflow shelter this winter, like we did last year in Sugar House. I don't have more details on where and how that would be look, but that is in the plans. And then the mayor, I don't know if the mayor's office is here, but they may talk about their 2-phase plan. The first phase is now with a lot more cleanings, public cleanings. So the city has funded for a couple of years now Advantage Services to clean areas that have a lot of trash and debris, like public sidewalks and those kind of places. We've been doing that in North Temple for a few months now because there's a lot of issues down there with it and other places in the city. So that's available across the city to hotspots. If we notice anything in the neighborhood that would sort of warrant that, we can get them involved. The second piece is much more targeted work with those who are unsheltered for access into other treatment options and beds, to have the legal issues kind of resolved more quickly, and a number of other services as well. So that'll be happening as well over the next probably at least 12 weeks and probably into the wintertime. So there are resources for unsheltered homelessness if you're seeing that in the neighborhood, and let me know. What else? I don't know. Other questions? I'll go with that at this point. I'll take that as no questions right now, but I'll be around for the whole meeting, so if they come up.
Thank you. Josh, I saw that you're on the line. Do you want to give an update from the mayor's office?
Josh.
Yes, thanks. So yeah, I'm Josh from the mayor's office, community liaison. So I wanted to just start first, of course, acknowledging the large windstorm we had last week. I assume everyone that's on this meeting has their power, and I think everyone should have their power. I know there was pockets that were being very difficult for Rocky Mountain Power to restore, but hopefully those are all restored soon. But a lot of the debris is still around, I'm sure, as you can see driving around. And so there, just wanted to give an update on how to handle that if you have that debris in your property from either a city-owned tree, which is a tree on a park strip, or a private tree that might be in your yard. And so let me actually just show you something. Is it okay, Turner, if I share my screen?
Yes, it should allow you. If not, I can adjust the settings.
Let me try. Okay, so this is the FAQ page on the city website that mentions what to do about wind damage and about debris cleanup. And so right now the city is working on picking up the debris from all the city-owned trees, and those, on the side of the debris from those trees should be on the side of the street, and the city will be collecting those soon. And if you happen to park on the street, just be careful not to park too close, as much as you can, not to park too close to a pile of branches, so city crews can reach that. As far as waste from private trees, as you can see here in this second part about private tree debris, so you shouldn't put your debris there on the side of the road just yet, as we're still going through and getting the city-owned debris. However, the city is coordinating for all debris, even from private trees, to be collected soon, but that'll still be weeks. And so that is not going to be very fast, but that will be happening. However, the Salt Lake Valley landfill is accepting green waste from individuals for free until through September 23rd. And I'm guessing if the need's there, it'll be even longer than that. If your debris is small enough that you can start putting it away, piecemeal through your regular garbage, that's something that you should do as well. So yeah, that's if you go to this page on the mayor's website or on the city website, there's a number of other questions that can be answered about the debris and about potential volunteer opportunities, or if you're in need of, or if anyone you know is in need of volunteer work. So I encourage you to visit that page if you have any questions. And yeah, that's all I wanted to share on this. So I'll share that link in the chat box right after I'm done. But before I go on, is there any questions about the storm and debris cleanup? Okay. I want to stop the share then. And so, yeah, as Councilmember Johnston mentioned, so the homelessness plan, the 12-week, the two-phase plan, is part of the mayor's winter COVID plan, which she presented to the council and was approved by the council at the beginning of this month. And so the homelessness piece of that, it's a two-phased, what's being called a community commitment program. And that starts at so 12-week period to clean up bio waste and garbage in selected targeted areas of the city where that is needed the most. And then the second part involves the Community Connection Center, social workers, service providers, legal defenders, justice court to take care of legal issues that people experiencing homelessness and these unsheltered encampments may be facing, and also to connect them with any needed treatment or temporary housing. And so that is going to be that's underway. Of course, the first phase that the neighborhood cleanup is underway as of this week. Some other parts of the mayor's COVID plan include additional 1.6 million for the city's youth programs to fill in gaps in childcare and educational support and social services that have been created by the pandemic, and providing also in the city language and cultural liaisons to assist our minority business owners and non-English speaking business owners to have better communication with the city. Additionally, additional $9 million housing stability package providing mortgage, rental, and rapid rehousing assistance. And those will be targeted to the zip codes hardest hit by the virus, which is 84116, 84104, I believe. And so those are parts of the plan. If you want, there's a video speech presentation that the mayor gave to the council that goes over the different aspects of this mayor's winter COVID plan that deals with a bunch of different areas that we're going to see needs for in the city as we enter the fall and winter with the virus still with us. And I will share that as well, that link in the chat as I'm finishing up here. Additionally, I just wanted to share the Racial Equity and Policing Commission. They're having meetings every Wednesday at 5 p.m. and those are available for the public to look in and watch. And I believe they are soon going to have. I don't believe they had one last week because of the storm. I'm not sure if they had one today. Actually, I didn't keep an eye on that, but I know that they're going to be starting having meetings where public comment will be welcomed and accepted for people to make comments in the meeting, not just watch. And so those will be every Wednesday, and then those I will share the link for you to look for the agendas on that if you're interested. And that is all I had for now, I don't believe, unless I'm forgetting something. Is there any questions about anything I mentioned or anything else for the mayor's office? Doesn't sound like there is. So thank you. I'm going to share those links in the chat box, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Andrew, I saw that Liz just joined, and Liz had emailed me earlier this week about the 9-line CDA area. Could you just maybe talk a little bit about that just a little bit more? Sorry, Liz, I didn't mean to draw attention to you. I just saw that you joined.
Sure. We've talked about this for sort of years off and on. Redevelopment agencies in Salt Lake City, it's the board of the redevelopment agency is the city council, and the executive director is the mayor. They're set up by state law to help cities to funnel tax dollars back to areas that need a lot of investment over a long period of time. And so it's been used to sort of redevelop areas that have fallen on blight or other problems. It's also been used in the past to redevelop places that have a big turnover and what they need to do in that area. So Sugar House was one years ago. The downtown area has been one for a long, long time now. North Temple was one. It's about 11 years into its cycle, and that's how they paid for the tracks improvements there and those kind of things. So it usually only lasts 20 to 25 years, and it involves the major taxing entities, those three I mentioned earlier, all saying for 20, 25 years, we will give up some amount of the tax increase from the base year, which is the first year it starts. So whatever the amount of tax it took in that year for the next 25 years, any increase would have to be used in that geographic area. So in our case, it would be this defined area around 9th West, Indiana, California, in this neighborhood essentially. And that has to be used in the neighborhood for a whole variety of things, almost anything as far as physical upgrades to the neighborhood, investment to, in our case, one of the goals is stabilize small businesses here, to help reinvest in vacant properties, which is a big issue along our areas. It's not to change zoning necessarily. It's not to add height like in Sugar House or anything else. It's tailored to the neighborhood. So in our case, it's really focused around these sort of small business nodes and vacant infill properties that we have. One big example is by Deseret Industries and Welfare Square. There's between 8th and 9th South from 8th sort of going to the freeway, 8th West going to the freeway. There's a lot of old sort of industrial there. And one of the first projects that's applied for money before this is even completed is to redo the Andrus appliance property. So they get some money from the RDA at sort of low interest rate for some other things, for some loan. And then they build it there, and that increases the value of the property, but it also adds to the neighborhood benefit for the neighborhood. So that's the idea of they call it a CDA now, an RDA area. It's governed by state law, so when the state changes the law, it can change slightly. It also means that, say, the school district in this case would give 75% of its tax increment, at least the growth, not the base, just the new stuff over 20 years to this area. But it also means that if it works, then over time, they get far more in taxes back than they would have put in initially. So that's the trade-off. But it means initially they don't take as much year over year, but they'll have a lot more at the end of the 20 years or even leading up to that, depending on the nature of the deal. So there is, but you have to have everyone involved and they have to agree to it. So right now we're still working with Salt Lake County on it. And typically it doesn't take 6 years. So it's a little, it takes some patience in this case.
What are the kinds of businesses that you're thinking will be benefiting? I mean, you said small business, but then, I mean, and I'm also wondering, like, is this going to be the kind of thing where more low income housing is coming in, more kind of warehouse businesses, like, and I think the major concern is, and I'm here just as an individual, but also I'm the chair of the Riley School Community Council. And like, my concern is taking money away from the school in order to put in more businesses when what our families really need is more support and funding for our education, especially right now during the pandemic. We're all struggling so much with that.
Sure. No, I think each area is sort of built differently. In our area, we're not zoning to change the area to more than it is right now. There have been some zoning changes around 8th South and 9th West, the Smiths kind of corners there. On 4th South and 9th West, we're off the freeway there, the vacant corners. Those were rezoned to go slightly more mixed use and more density for housing, but it's infill, it's not replacing something. The other thing we have is west of Redwood Road on Indiana, there's a bunch of, if you go south, there's a lot of that sort of light industrial area, the storage areas you're talking about. But on the other side is a bunch of city property that's unused at this point. And that's got a lot of opportunity as well, particularly because Redwood Road is a 15-minute bus corridor, a transit corridor, and there's a lot of easy access to transportation there. So you could do some different things there than you would on 9th West. For our neighborhood, we're not going to bring in big box stores and things. I know people have talked about that for a long time, but it's probably not what's going to happen here. We have a lot of small businesses. We also have a lot of places that are underutilized that could support smaller businesses and neighborhood-based businesses, but they're going to need some upfront starting cost help, right? Loans or grants or things like to get it moving. It also can help us do infrastructure upgrades to attract folks. So with North Temple as an example of major reconstruction of that entire boulevard to attract things. Now, it struggled in various ways, but it's got all the building blocks for a lot of growth there. So yeah, the school district, whatever they made now in taxes, they'll still make plus 25% of the growth. But the other part would be invested essentially in the neighborhood, saying, and the neighborhood does better, that comes back to all the entities in higher returns on taxes. Now, my personal view is I think for housing, we need mixed income housing across the entire city. I'm advocating for something akin to inclusionary zoning with incentives. The reason I say that is because we are the affordable part of the city right now, but even we're not affordable anymore. So as we bring in new development, or as property prices get high enough where people are going to buy places and sort of flip them or tear them down and try and build something new, we got to ensure that there's some number of different types of housing in here, over here, so that we can have housing for families, for lower incomes, for middle incomes. I think that should be true across the entire city personally. Otherwise, it is going to go where it's the cheapest land. So,
Thank you.
Andrew, sorry, I had a quick question. Andrew, is there anything else that the Glendale Community Council can do to help spur the approval process for that RDA area? I think we've already submitted a letter of support, but I mean, is there anything else that we can do to influence it?
The school district, the school board has ultimate say over the school district's involvement in this. I think they may be revisiting their decision they made last year. So I think that would be important to talk to school board members if you are in favor or get information. I know we're planning to talk with them again as well and talk through details. With the county, I think that they want to restructure some of the deal a little bit. In the past, you set up the deal up front, and then for 20 years, it didn't really change. What I understand from the county end of things is cities across the county can use these areas for however they want. And oftentimes what may happen is a developer comes in and finds a big piece of land they really want to develop, and they want some tax help to do it. And so they'll sort of drive an area creation or something along those lines, even in areas that maybe didn't need a lot of public funding to do well. And I think my example would be along tracks lines, with North Temple being the exception right now. It's not that hard to get developers to come in right now. They're willing to come in a lot of ways. It may be hard to make the housing affordable they're building, and that's where we could use some of that increment. In our area, it's a little different, and that's where I'm making the pitch of saying our neighborhood has struggled for a long time to get investment. It's hard for small businesses to survive over here. We are one of the few places in the city that has vacant lots, and a fair number of them. We can't get people to come and build a business. And my basic, simplest example is a coffee shop. We still don't have a coffee shop west of I-15. Years and years and years in this. And so the question is, how do you help them come in the neighborhood and stay in the neighborhood and support the neighborhood? Because investing here in the 9-line CDA, because the geographic boundaries are literally Glendale and Poplar Grove, if that does well, then everybody sort of gets that return on the investment. We have to build in other pieces to it so that it doesn't mean that it gets exploited or we all get priced out of here. I think that's where we have to, the city, do more for this inclusionary concept of zoning and ensure that we don't get, it doesn't get so, and this may sound strange to some folks, but that it doesn't get so enticing over here that property values go through the roof and none of us can afford it eventually, or our kids can't afford it. So we have to sort of balance those two things. I think it's talking to the county council. So Arlen Bradshaw is our representative in this area of the county. The school board, and these are ongoing discussions. Like I said, generally it doesn't take 6+ years to move these forward, but times are changing. So I'm fine with those discussions. I met with the county, I want to say 2 weeks ago now, and we talked through a lot of details and some concerns they've got. So I'm more than happy to sort of restructure these deals. However, everyone thinks it'd be more comfortable, decreasing the amount that's given in, whatever it is. I think that I like the idea of investing in our neighborhood this way, though, because otherwise we're going to always, I think, have to fight and claw for any sort of investment over here.
Thanks.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one more thing following up, just based on my relationships with parents at Riley who live in the neighborhood that are not often represented in this space, from my experience of attending Glendale Community Council meetings for a lot of different reasons. And I feel like we need to be careful that as we're talking about us getting priced out, like realizing people are already being priced out of the neighborhood, and like how can we continue to keep Glendale the vibrant and amazing, diverse community where refugees are welcome and people who are undocumented are also able to buy homes and are welcome in this community as well in this deal. And that's like another part of my concern about it.
Sure, and I can understand that, and I agree with you. My concern is doing what we've done has not preserved the neighborhood, and so I'm sensitive to that. I couldn't afford a house here anymore. You know, I can't, and so it is already happening. Not doing anything's not sort of helping, and so we've got to invest in different ways now. If we have this tax increment kept in this neighborhood, I think we target it in the housing market, particularly to ensure that we have a mix of housing options for folks. And that means a lot of the market stuff right now is micro units, like 300 square foot apartments, because you can go market and get the price down, but you can't get a family or even a couple, frankly, in those. And so that's really hot across the city, and it's going to go on in North Temple pretty soon now as well. We have to make sure that we're investing in the housing market here so we can maintain single family homes, because those are the easiest way to, with yards and everything else. And I think the city invests in that. If there's more sort of density with townhomes or apartment buildings, Redwood Road is where I'm thinking particularly. I think we have to also, if we're going to use this money, we have to demand certain pieces of developers. And that's where larger units, 3-bedroom plus units in kind of that kind of development. It also means maybe we go into the city and we start purchasing some of these vacant homes if we can, keep them in the housing stock, particularly in our land trust, and do that sort of thing. But that money could be used for that, in my view. So that's where I'm seeing this money come in and being used to target our needs in the neighborhood. Otherwise, it just sits there and we can build light posts and sidewalks and things, which are great, don't get me wrong, but it's probably not going to help our housing issues and bringing businesses in so that we can keep small businesses here, which is a huge deal.
Thank you. To keep us on task and on with our agenda, I'd ask that you hold questions and we'll come back to it if you have another one come up. Is that okay? So next up, I'd like to invite Representative Romero to give an update.
Yeah, thank you. I just got back from the Capitol, so I've had a long day. But I agree with Andrew, but I also agree with Lisa, because I think sometimes we don't value some of the businesses we currently have on the west side. And we want a certain look for this neighborhood, but we already have a look for this neighborhood. And so I want to make sure when we go about doing this, we're not dismissing some of the vibrant neighborhood businesses that I use all the time, because it doesn't fit what we think it should look like. But I'm not saying that we don't need more businesses down here and we don't need to diversify that way. In regards to the legislature, we've been in meetings for the past two days, basically, and we are just looking, we're getting policy updates, and so for those that don't know me, my name's Angela Romero, and I'm kind of tired right now, so I might not make sense. And I'm your representative for the Utah House of Representatives. So I represent Glendale, downtown, Poplar Grove, parts of West Valley, 9th and 9th. So I have a big chunk. So I have about 7 community council meetings I attend. And this session, this last round, we have just been looking at policy and what we're going to move forward this next coming session. And so I serve on law enforcement and also on education. So today in our education committee, we were just getting an update from the superintendent and from the state superintendent, as well as some local superintendents on how they're making sure that schools are safe for our kids. And as you know, Salt Lake City will not, we're virtual until we're under 5%. So that's a little bit different than some of the other areas. So we've just been getting briefings. The most interesting thing that happened in one of my committees was in law enforcement and criminal justice. There were 2 issues. So we're looking at the sex offender registry right now and whether we should be a little bit more lenient. A lot of my colleagues support that, but I don't, because I reminded my colleagues that a lot of people, sexual assault, child sex abuse is underreported. And so a lot of times we focus on perpetrators only, and we focus on how to get them off the sex offender registry, but we're forgetting about the victims and their families as well. And so we will be addressing that this legislative session. So I'll kind of keep everyone updated on how we're going to go about how somebody can get off the registry, whether it's 10 years, whether it's lifetime. So that was an important issue we were talking about. The other big issue we were talking about was some of my colleagues, due to some of the protests, due to what's going on, they want to have stiffer penalties for people who, they separated peaceful protesters from people that riot. And we already have strict laws, so I don't really agree with them on that we need to make stiffer laws, but I wasn't there to vote because I was on another panel for something else. So that's something that's coming up that I'd like you all to think about as we move forward as a legislature, whether that should be our focus or whether it should be on police reform and what does police reform look like. The other issue that many of us have been trying to bring up is addressing people experiencing homelessness. I don't know if the council member mentioned that, but he's been a champ on this and he's been really trying to bring people together. And so we're trying to work with our colleagues to provide more funding at a state level for people who are experiencing homelessness. And so we'll kind of see where that goes. But that's kind of the overall summary of what we talked about this past session. There are a variety of committees that I don't serve on that my colleagues serve on. And I can give Turner the link so you can look at each of these committees and see what they talked about, because there's so much I could talk about, but really the information I provide you is what I'm talking about in my particular committees. The one thing that people were talking about in government and operations was how we've used CARES Act funding, how the governor at his discretion and his staff have used CARES Act funding. There are concerns from both Republicans and Democrats that there needs to be a little bit more accountability, especially when it comes to the money we gave Test Utah and others. We want to see where are those outcomes. So I can definitely send Turner that link and you all can listen to that particular committee meeting if you want to. And basically that's it. We're all putting forward legislation this session. My focus has always been sexual assault, domestic violence, and human trafficking. So the bills I'm bringing forward this session will be on consent. I'm also working with the Department of Public Safety and different organizations, from BIPOC people to refugee to protesters. So we're meeting twice, like every 2 weeks, and talking about legislation where it's DPS, which is the Department of Public Safety, which includes Highway Patrol. It's the Attorney General's office. It's the prosecutor's office. It's Black Lives Matters. It's NAACP. It's people like me sitting down talking about how do we move forward together in order to do police reform. So that's taken a lot of my personal time as well. So I'm open to questions if anyone has any questions for me. Yeah. Sorry. I'm glad. Thank you. Just kidding.
I had a question about how long is that you've been meeting with the Department of Public Safety?
Probably now for about a month. And so I was approached by Chief Red, Brian Red. I don't know if any of you have met with him. If Representative Johnston knows him well, because he worked on what we called Operation Rio Grande, which was addressing homelessness. And so I was approached by him to participate, and then connecting him to different community groups and advocacy groups. And then he connected us to all the law enforcement groups, because we figured that there might be some things that we don't agree on at all, but there are some things that we can agree on. So we've been having these conversations and we've been talking about systemic racism. And so I'm actually surprised with the Department of Public Safety and them kind of leading this effort. So our meeting, not this meeting because we had a meeting on Monday, but the meeting 2 weeks earlier, we were talking about our juvenile justice system and how community youth of color are overrepresented, especially Black youth, when it comes to secure correctional facilities. And so we were talking about why is that? And it really goes to these different systems that are in place. And so we're talking about, well, what are things that we can do differently as a state to do preventative measures versus just punishing? And so these are some of the things that we're having conversations about. Last Monday, we were talking about post, and that's where if you get in trouble, so that's where you have to go through to order to become a police officer. But if there's any issues with law enforcement, it always goes to post. And so we're looking at laws right there to figure out, like, we're looking at Laura Mikulski's case in particular. How are there ways that before someone quits that post can evaluate their performance? So we have different people talking about how can we improve those laws, because one of the bills I'm going to run is on de-escalation and CIT training. But we can't have community intervention training for law enforcement or even de-escalation training, because it shows it doesn't work if we don't change other parts of the law in regards to holding peace officers accountable. And so these are just some of the conversations that we're having, and are we utilizing peace officers in the way that we should be? Like, where should our focus be? And so these are some honest conversations that we're having, and many times we agree, many times we don't agree, but we know that we have to come up with something, and I'd rather some stuff pass than nothing pass. And I always tell people that things don't happen overnight. That's why we have the checks and balances of government. That's why you have a federal government, a state government, a county government, a local government, and you have 3 branches within that government, and then you have the nonprofit sector, because all of those are checks and balances. And so things aren't going to just magically change. I mean, to even have the conversation where we can say Black Lives Matters in this without getting pushback, and DPS saying, yes, it does, what can we do to work together to feel like everyone feels like they're part of this community, has been a huge shift. But I can't say that's going to happen once we get into the session, because then you add 75 members from the House and 26 members in the Senate. So we're trying to work together to come up with some sound policy that we can pass, but we know that we're not going to be able to pass everything this session. But what can we do to start moving forward? Because a lot of people will reach out to me and say, I need you to do something about homelessness. And I'm like, well, that I don't want to get in Andrew's way. So I try to support him and others to see how can we support you. So even just explaining the fundamentals of government and who does what has been really, really interesting as we move forward. And when it comes to police reform, people are like, you need to do something about Salt Lake Police Department. I'm like, that's not my jurisdiction. I'm part of the state. And so that is the city council again. And the mayor, there are things that we can do at a state level to change the law so that they can do different things. But so it's just really having these conversations, and they're not easy. And I'll be honest with you, it can be emotionally exhausting, because I have people telling me, what are you gonna do about this? What are you gonna do about racism? And I'm like, every day I wake up, I look in the mirror, I'm brown. I've dealt with racism all my life in Utah. And so when people say, well, you need to do more, I'm like, have you seen what I do? You know, so again, my goal for many people here that are listening is research who your elected officials are, find out where they stand on policy, call them up before you make a where you think you know where they stand on an issue when you don't know where they stand on an issue. Like, as soon as I get off of this call, I've texted 2 constituents that live on the eastern end of my district saying, I'm on a community council call, I'm going to call you all after. And they're like, is that okay? And they're like, yes. And again, most of these conversations, Councilman Johnston, are going to be on homelessness. I already know. But the point is that find out, reach out to us. We're people just like you, and we're here to represent you because you elect us. And so we have the due diligence to answer your calls, and maybe the answer we give you is not what you like. Maybe that you give me a suggestion that I'm going to use. So I just want people to know that we're here to represent you. We're doing the best we can. Can we do better? We can always do better. But reach out to me if you have any concerns. And that's my little message of the day, I guess.
Thank you, Representative Romero. I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda, but would you mind putting your legislative email in the chat for folks? So next up on the agenda, I'd like to invite Will from the Transportation Division. We did a visioning exercise at 9th West and California Avenue a couple of weeks ago, and Will is here to present on the results of what he's been working on.
Thank you, Turner. I will try to move as quickly as I can through my item, because I know that you guys have a lot more to discuss in your meeting today. So let me try to share my screen first. Is my audio working okay for you guys?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Let's see. Okay, hopefully you can see that.
It's not showing on our end.
How about now?
There we go. Yep, there we go.
Great. Okay. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I was here for your last community council meeting to discuss a project that we're working on, a safety improvement project for the intersection of 900 West and California Ave. So we have really the goals of this project are to really address what you all know is a very important intersection. It's an access point for a lot of community destinations, a lot of family centers, schools, Sorenson Center, parks, libraries. You know, there's a lot of families and children that are walking and biking and using this intersection. It's also an intersection that provides an access to the freeway and to other parts of the city. And so we're looking at ways that we can make some improvements to this intersection so that it better meets the needs of the community. And what we've been doing for the last month and a half is introducing this project. We had a survey that we had open for over a month. We sent out a lot of mailers and visited homes and businesses around the intersection to try to make people aware that we're going to be looking at this intersection and trying to get as much community feedback as we possibly can going into this project, because we want to know essentially what is working and what is not working for people at this intersection, so that it helps us understand where we should be putting our focus in terms of making safety improvements to this intersection. And so I'm here tonight to give you an update on that, the results of the survey, and then introduce to you a concept that we're going to be looking to move forward and asking for people to take a look at and give us some feedback on. So let's see if I get this to move forward. Yeah, California Ave and 900 West, everybody here knows where this is. So let me just jump into the survey results. So we actually had a really great response. We had over 200 responses to the survey, and so we feel like that was great. Just to give you kind of a cross section of the modes that people are using from the people who responded to this survey. A lot of people who are driving responded to this survey on a weekly and daily basis. That was kind of the primary mode that we're seeing. So, you know, 45% are that responded to the survey are driving through this intersection on a daily basis, another 28% weekly. And then we also, you know, have a pretty good representation of folks that are walking and biking as well. You know, 45% walking occasionally, 35% biking occasionally. But something that I wanted to point out is that the representation of people that took this survey who drive also, they're not just drivers, they're also people who walk and bicycle through this intersection on a daily or weekly basis. So I just think that's important to point out, because you know, just because you're someone who drives or just because you're someone who bikes, it doesn't mean that's the only experience that you have using this intersection. So 43% of people who drive on a daily basis are also walking and bicycling through this intersection on a daily or weekly basis. So I think that's nice for this for the survey results. Okay, so one of the questions that we were asking about is, you know, what is working for you here? What do you like about this intersection? We had about 71% of the respondents provide feedback on this question. And really there are a few common themes that we identified. About 149 comments were submitted on this. And really what people told us is that, hey, this is an important intersection because of all the amenities surrounding the intersection. Again, this is an important access point to a lot of our community destinations. And then we also heard a lot that that this intersection is where two bike lanes meet. And so this is an important bicycling corridor for people as well. And that's something that we know is an important factor for this intersection. So what are some things that people did not particularly like about this intersection and wanted to be addressed? So we had 176 comments submitted on this, and roughly 150 of those are related to safety concerns, and specifically concerns about people, the safety of people walking and bicycling, traffic speeds. You know, I think in general, just visibility at the crosswalk as well. So if you're standing on one of these corners waiting to make your crossing, just being visible was something that people were concerned about. And so just a couple of comments that I think highlight these overall comments well are that, you know, drivers tend to speed through probably because it's wide. So it's a wide intersection. And, you know, if you're going westbound on California Ave, you're kind of carrying a lot of speed and momentum through the intersection. It feels dangerous to cross on foot or even waiting on a bike. Again, people tend to speed through the intersection. And just for the amount of volume that there's too much traffic and not enough safety measures. And then specifically, you know, pedestrian safety when school's in session, so children safety at this intersection. And then, you know, because there is California Ave, again, if you're headed westbound, there's a curve that if you're traveling fast can make seeing traffic pretty hard, oncoming traffic pretty hard to see. So, and then another comment that we heard quite a bit was just making some of these left turning movements without a turning arrow to give you that go ahead can be challenging. We also asked people about how safe they feel doing the following activities on this street, and you know, we want to see all of the answers to this to be safe. But as you can see, folks who were driving felt mostly neutral to safe, and obviously there's still some challenges there that we need to address for drivers. And then when you look at walking and biking specifically, people do not feel safe at this intersection right now. Not nearly as safe as obviously we want them. 37% of people walking and biking said they do not feel safe, and another 30% very unsafe. So again, common theme that we're seeing, and also the goal of what we're trying to address at this intersection. And then we also had a fantastic event that Turner, again, thank you so much for putting this together and hosting. The city came out and spoke with members of the community council. Sorry about that. Standard for today's presentations. But we had a really great conversation with a lot of community members, and it was nice to be out there safely distancing, but at the intersection there, having a conversation about you know, what's going on at the intersection, but also just the larger context of these streets that connect this intersection, and some of the overall themes. And I think overall, what we discussed was also represented well in the survey results. We're hearing the same things, and we received a great letter asking that we prioritize pedestrian safety, and access at this intersection for pedestrians, cyclists, and children specifically. And that also we take into account that this is the gateway for the community, and that you know, this intersection would best serve the community if it signaled to folks that you're entering a neighborhood. And so that's something that we appreciate and obviously have taken into account as we move forward with the project. Okay, so right now I just wanted to give you a quick look. This is what the intersection kind of looks like today. This is actually a little bit outdated as well, because this doesn't show the bike lanes on 900 West. So this aerial image is a little bit outdated, but here's what the intersection roughly looks like today, minus the bike lane. And this is what, based on all the comments we've received and the great feedback we've received, this is what we are looking at as a concept for, and again, this is an initial attempt at a draft concept design for ways that we can address the issues that we have heard about, kind of within the scope of what we're doing. We're not reconstructing the road. We're not tearing apart everything and rebuilding it again. So what can we do given the existing conditions that are out there today? And so what can we do to address the speeds, make people more visible, make it feel more comfortable when you're biking and walking to get across that street? And so I just wanted to walk through some of the elements of this design that we've come up with. What you're looking at here is a combination of some paint and some concrete islands. These concrete islands, if you can see my cursor here, these are the concrete islands here. The tan and the green are the paint. And then these are pedestrian refuge islands that the concrete islands create. And so what we're doing without reconstructing the road is attempting to physically narrow the space, the width of the road as you're crossing through it. It feels much less comfortable to drive quick, you know, at a high speed when you do this. So this, first of all, helps to try to address some of the speeds, but especially for vehicles that are making a turning movement here. It really requires that you slow down, and it creates it gives both pedestrians and cyclists that are crossing the street and vehicles that are making that turning movement an opportunity to slow down and see people that are in the crosswalk or in the bike crossing. So this is another look. If you're looking east on California Ave, this kind of gives you a much better sense, I think, of what that actually looks like on the ground. So the Sorenson Center is here on your top right. We're looking east on California Avenue. And so, as I said, one of the great things about this design, where you have a bike lane that you actually bend out near the crosswalk as you approach the intersection, is that these turning vehicles, they really need to slow down, and it sets them back a little bit and allows both the driver and the person walking or riding a bike to react to each other. And it also, as I'd mentioned, really opens up the sight line for vehicles, so that they see people that are in the crosswalk or crossing in the bike lane. And again, we know that if you address the speeds, that you have a much better chance of vehicles actually yielding to people that are trying to cross. So you have a much higher compliance when you get the speeds down. And so these are all things that this design is working on trying to do. again, here's another look at that for you. So we're at the point now where we are going to be kind of putting all this information together on our website. We've been working real hard to kind of get all this together and get it ready so that we have it here tonight to present. We're hoping to be able to move forward and have something implemented by next year. So we are moving quickly to try to make sure we have plenty of time to give everybody an opportunity to take a look at this stuff and provide comments and feedback so that we can incorporate that into our designs. So by the end of the week here, we should have the survey results and this concept design up on our website. And this, if you go to our transportation website, you can find the project webpage there. And then this is the email address that you can send emails directly to the project team. So I will try to wrap up, but I'm happy to take any questions now if people would like, but can also reach me offline and we can take any comments and have discussions offline as well.
So I'm going to jump in. Thank you so much for this, Will. It looks really great, and I'm here as an individual who lives in Glendale, but also, and everybody's already heard this, but you may not have been on the call yet, but also representing the Riley School Community Council. So my first question is, I wondered if you might be open to presenting these changes to our parents. I think that would be great. And then my second thought is that one of the parts of our safe walking routes for kids to school is that intersection right before you get here on 8th South and 13th. And you really do see, I mean, I know people will now slow down, hopefully, coming into 9th West, but you really do see people just going crazy right through that light, right where you enter into the back entrance to the school. And that's where most of the parents come in to drop their kids off. And so I wondered if you all had thoughts about is there anything you can do within this that would also be considering that part of the intersection?
Yeah, so you're talking about the entrance to Riley.
At 8th West and 13th South. There's a little light right there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can, let's maybe chat offline and see what we might be able to look at. Right now, though, the scope of the project is specifically just looking at this intersection. That doesn't mean that we don't want to look at other things, but that might be a separate project that we look at doing.
Thanks, Will. I'm going to move us along on the agenda just because we have a few more presenters. I'd like to welcome Nancy from Salt Lake City Parks and Public Lands to talk about the master plan.
Great. Oh, thanks for having me. I'm also here with Kristen Riker, our Director of Public Lands, and we wanted to just introduce this planning project, and I hope that most of you have seen the signs for Reimagine Nature out in the community and sort of that call to action to get online and participate in our online survey. I wanted to take just a few minutes to describe a little bit more, the background of the project and invite you to get online and look more in depth at the materials. I have a short presentation that I'd like to share and then have some time for questions at the end. So this master plan is, master plans typically are done, somewhere around every 20 years. I mean, ideally you would do a plan with a 20-year horizon and update it every 10 years. We did an open space, or the city did an open space plan in 1992 and a Parks Recovery Action Plan, which was really an update in 2001, so we're overdue. And I think with all of the recent events, it's definitely kind of woke us up to what's around us and made us realize that, our immediate parks and trails and natural lands have a big role in our quality of life. So I think we're really looking to the community, looking to all of you to help us define what that should be in the future. And so I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So Reimagine Nature, one of the things that happened, we started this project, I think we were going to have the consultants come out and visit in mid-March. And as you know, we had to change that. So we pivoted and we decided that we really needed a strong brand, an online presence, a dedicated project website, and to really make it as accessible as possible through digital means. And we decided to call it Reimagine Nature, in that sense that how are we re-looking at our spaces and thinking about the opportunities all around us. So public lands is the name of our three, or it kind of is a collection of our trails and natural lands, city parks, and urban forest. This is a citywide plan, and it's a rare opportunity to establish those big ideas, the long-range goals and transformative projects for our public lands. And this plan will be organized around 10 transformative projects or big ideas. And we wanted something really tangible to work towards and focus our efforts into the future. And along with those projects, we'll have strategies and actions to really accomplish those goals. We'll use comprehensive evidence-based analysis and couple that with community engagement to prioritize and identify those projects for the city. The foundation for this project was a comprehensive public lands needs assessment. And we hired a consultant in that study. It was about 1.5 years, and it was completed last April. And that study included a statistically valid survey, which meant we sent out something like 10,000 invitations across the city and kept it open until we had a response rate in each area of the city that represented kind of geographic equity in terms of response. So we coupled that with an analysis of our existing park system and looking at not only acres of park, but location of park, and then proximity of parks. So where are there gaps in the city where people live more than a half mile from a park, walking distance from a park? Where do we need more trails to make parks more accessible? And what do we need to improve? We also did our first asset condition study, and we found that we have a pretty big backlog in deferred maintenance that we need to address as well. Oops. So our consultants, it's about an 18-month process, and they've been working about 4 months looking at our precedent studies and other plans that we would want to tier off of. They put together this kind of a snapshot, and you can find this also online, and shows our existing conditions. So the trails and natural lands, we have over 70 miles of existing trails, but we have 129 miles of proposed trails. And those are indicated by the dashed lines. Trails and Natural Lands manages almost 1,700 acres of natural lands, and they currently have almost 6,500 acres in the Foothills Natural Area, which is a collaborative management zone, and that's shown in the red color in the hatches in the foothills. And that was something that came out of the recently completed effort with the Foothill Trails Master Plan. Our parks are shown in blue. We have 735 acres in parks, and that is 42 mini parks, 19 neighborhood parks, 15 community parks, 2 regional parks, our regional athletic complex of 16 outdoor sports fields, 3 special event parks, and the 121 acre city cemetery. And I kind of go through all those details just to let you know what a vast system we have. And I would say we are constantly trying to figure out, we have so many needs, where should we focus our efforts? And I think we're really looking forward to really engaging the community to help us prioritize where we should be investing, and what is important, and how to grow into the future. So the other thing that this plan will do is identify potential synergies between our public land system and the city-owned green spaces, including golf. So one of the things that the needs assessment showed is that there's a real opportunity to address parks and natural lands as essential elements for better air quality, climate change mitigation, energy efficiency, and environmental justice. So one of the things that we've learned through COVID is we have seen a dramatic increase in our parks, trails, and natural lands, and they have become an essential place in our everyday lives to get out, to be with our friends and family in a safe way. And we're hoping that, you know, people are thinking a little bit more about what would they like to see in their parks? How can we shape them and make them meet the needs of your neighborhood and your community in a way that means something to you? We're also developing the plan around 3 core values of stewardship, livability, and equity, and they'll guide how we find new ways to connect people to green spaces. So the first one, equity, is, I know, front and center for the city and most of us with the current events. And I want to say that, you know, the first step with kind of thinking about this is to listen. And it begins with listening and including those diverse voices in the master plan. And one of the things that we're getting set up to do right now is a series of micro engagement efforts. So reaching out to traditionally underrepresented groups. A lot on the west side, we're working with the University of Utah Community Planning course. And I know many of you know Professor Ivas Garcia. We're collaborating with her and her students to kind of amplify our outreach and also to include those young voices, because so much of this is planning for the future. So we're working with them and university neighborhood partners to identify community members that may not traditionally interface in our traditional avenues for providing input to these kinds of plans. So the needs assessment identified gaps and barriers in public lands. And I want to be sure to emphasize that we're committed to listening to the realities and perceptions of access to public lands from all sides of Salt Lake City. So one of the other things we've done too is reach out to over 200 community groups that have been invited to participate. So the next value, livability, is really recognizing that part of our needs assessment, we looked at demographic trends and calculated that over 30,000 more people are projected to move to the city by 2040. And what I've heard from recent numbers is that is actually happening much faster. What that really means, so when we solicited input from city residents really feel like we have enough spaces and that we should invest in what we currently have and protect that and add more maintenance, improve the assets. But I think one of the things that people don't realize is when you grow and you add more population, you have more people using the same assets and access actually decreases. So we need to, as we look forward to the future, we need to plan to maintain our existing assets, but also accommodate that growth for the new residents so that everybody can still enjoy the service that they've been accustomed to. And I think one of the things that we'll also do is we'll work with the community to identify, you know, out-of-the-box opportunities to use our city parks, golf courses, and natural areas and streetscapes to increase public access to nature, trails, sports fields, and public gathering spaces. So the third value of stewardship, and I think these are kind of big words, and I think even with these things of equity, livability, and stewardship, a lot of that needs to be defined by the community. What does that mean? But one of the things we heard, again, I mentioned with the needs assessment, is it's important to our residents that we take care of what we have. stewardship can also inspire us to preserve habitats that plants and wildlife can thrive and be resilient to impacts of climate change, like rising temperatures. You know, one of the things we've certainly felt recently is with the change in the windstorm last week, and how do we adapt to that, and how do we create a more resilient landscape into the future. So how can you be involved? We have, this plan is really organized around 3 engagement windows, and we are in the middle of the first window. It started in the end of August, and it'll be open until October 7th. So what that is discover. So we're sharing out information from the needs assessment, and then also soliciting, taking a little bit deeper look with the public to get feedback on what are those potential priorities. We would like during this window to cast as wide a net as possible to get as many people to weigh in on that survey, so that we can also collect emails and solicit those people throughout the process as we help frame the projects moving forward. Once we receive that first round of data, we'll take some time to reflect on the responses, and then we'll be reaching out to our stakeholders. As I mentioned, we reached out to over 200 community organizations, and we asked, in each organization, we asked, you know, what level would you like to be involved? Inform or collaborate? And then, you know, from the lowest involvement to the highest, and I would say 90% of the organizations said that they want the highest level of involvement, and we're really excited about that. So what we'll do is, once we have the information from the needs assessment, the survey, we'll reach out to those stakeholders and kind of test a few ideas out and start to frame up what those transformative projects are. And then once we have kind of an idea of these transformational projects, and that could be something like an equity mapping tool or a strategy to improve our neighborhood parks. It could also look at, how do we turn the Jordan River into a recreational destination? Those are just some ideas. There'll be a combination of very tangible physical things, and then maybe kind of systems or processes that we use to manage our spaces. So that community engagement window is really, we're pushing that back just a little bit. It'll be probably the end of February. And then after that, based on that input, we'll finalize the plan. And that third final community engagement window is going to be focused around plan adoption, and that'll be sometime next summer. So kind of 2 asks for this group. I would love for the Glendale Community Council to share this information on your social media channels and really encourage your constituents to get on and respond to our survey. There's also a tab on that project website where you can put your big idea, and we'll make that live on the website. We do kind of look at them first to make sure that they're for public viewing, but I would love to see a lot of great ideas, you know, ideas come out on that website, because I think one of the things with engagement, it's an opportunity to give our input, but then also hear other people's ideas. So I invite you to do that. And then, you know, I think for those of you who use social media a lot, you know, one of the things that makes a big difference is if you post it on your own social media and have a note there. That I hear, that makes a really big difference for people to get on and take a survey, because we are kind of bombarded with surveys every day. But I think, you know, this is a once in a generation opportunity to really provide input on this master plan, which will shape the future of Salt Lake City. And so I'll stop sharing, and I'd love to, you know, Kristen and I would love to entertain questions or comments.
I think what I'll do is I'll ask folks to do that in the chat so that I can move on to the next item. We still have 2 agenda items.
Okay,
A little bit
that sounds
behind.
good.
But if you wouldn't mind posting your email or contact information in the chat as well, that way folks could contact you after the meeting as well.
That's great. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and move on to Raging Waters. We have JP and Kyle from the city here to talk about the Raging Waters property.
Thanks, Turner. My name is JP Goetz. I'm a capital asset manager with the city. I have the fortunate position of dealing with vacant city property, and as you all know, the former Raging Waters has been vacant for some time, since about 2018. I'd like to get everyone updated on that park. I mean, some of you do know, some of you may not know what the status is, but I think everyone needs to get some good information on really where we're at and what we've found in capital assets. And through interviews with multiple water park operators and experts in the field, it's kind of a niche field, but the park is in bad shape, and the infrastructure has been severely damaged. And there's a lot of issues, and we've really found that it's not salvageable at this point. So we wanted to start the conversation with the community and really get feedback to see how the community feels about the current state of the park and next steps. And this dovetails in with what Parks is doing in their master plan, and we can we've created a website strictly dedicated to this to this process in this park, and we'd like to hear back from you. I'm going to share my screen so you all can see what the website looks like, and we've got a lot of photos and a lot of footage that we've collected. Our Salt Lake City television has done drone footage, and we've really documented what's there and what's going on with the current state of it. But as you can see, we've had about 4 different fires out there. The office has been burned down. The snack shack has had a fire, and the fire department's been called out multiple times. We've had, I think, in 1 month last summer, 160 police calls. There's been, as many of you know, a lot of nefarious activity out there. These photos kind of document how basically every ounce of copper wire has been stripped out of the park. A lot of graffiti, and I can't say that the skating is a bad thing. I think that's a fun activity in the appropriate places. We have designated skate parks. This is not one of them. But the bottom line is that the pools leak water. The infrastructure is damaged badly. It has not been maintained by previous operators well. As you can see in these pictures, there are weeds growing through the concrete. So we're in a difficult spot to say that the experts have weighed in, and there's not a lot that can be done with it at this point. And so what we'd like to do is come to you with this site and put this out into the ether and the cyberverse, and let the community weigh in and let us know what they think about this information and taking next steps. As Parks has mentioned, there's a lot of opportunity with the site, and we'd like to hear from you folks and start that conversation. Does anyone have any questions about it?
Doesn't sound like it. What is your ask of folks? Is it to complete the survey, or what kind of action would you like to take? And I see that Soren raised his hand. Soren, if you have a question, feel free.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great. Hey, JP, thank you so much. I'm well. Good to see you as well. Really interested to hear about what's going on here. For those that don't know me very well, I am the director of the Jordan River Commission,
And we're very interested in what might happen with this site because of its proximity to the Jordan River. My question is, we are currently just about midway through a major update to the Blueprint Jordan River. We've been doing tons of community engagement, a massive online survey. We had over 8,000 responses to over the last 2 months. And I think this is a really interesting opportunity, which I just heard about from Turner as we were paddling the Jordan River a few days ago down in the south end of the valley, to really reimagine how this might interface and support broader goals for the Jordan River, not just in Salt Lake City, but across the entire watershed. And so my question is there some way that we can share information and cross-pollinate some ideas in cooperation with Salt Lake City to try and help dovetail the big vision for the entire Jordan River Parkway and how this piece might fit into that vision as well?
Yeah, I think Nancy and Kristen could probably speak to that. It sounds like it's a very much a parks type topic, and I would just add that one of the things I didn't add, I mean, amongst many constraints to the park, this park was purchased in the water park history at the bottom of the page here, and we've got some information and detail there. But this park or this property was purchased using federal funds, land and water conservation funds. So it has to be used for outdoor recreation in perpetuity. And moving forward, the state actually administers those funds, and they will be the entity that needs to approve what this is being used for. So I wanted to put that out there, but also I think Nancy and Kristen could probably speak to the way your initiatives could fit into the Parks Master Plan, because it very much is a parks topic.
Could I jump in quick, Soren and Turner?
Yes.
I agree, JP, about those folks jumping in quickly on the long-term vision. I think there's two parts right here. In my discussions with JP and with Parks, right now, the question is about clearing the site of the infrastructure, demolishing it. And we wanted to make sure we brought it to the community first to say, look, here's the reality of what the infrastructure looks like now, the proposed costs we've gotten from various folks to salvage what's there versus even start something brand new. Even if we want to do a brand new water park, it doesn't look feasible from what I'm seeing and what I'm understanding to do it with the existing infrastructure on that site. And so the first question before the council and the community and the city is, do we demolish the existing stuff on there? And basically start with a clean slate. And the second phase would be, then what do you do with the clean slate? It's got to be a park in some way, a parks, but what do you do is that second question. So just so we know that the first question before us is whether to demolish what's there for a lot of reasons. And as hard as it is for me to say it, I think I agree with it. But then the second question is, Soren, what you're talking about, what's the long-term vision? So I just want to keep that in front of people's minds.
To respond a little bit from the community council's perspective, we're planning, as part of the One Glendale process that we've been doing, we're planning to do some site visits, not necessarily going back behind the fence, but to do some visioning and maybe create some consensus around those goals. So what I'll do is I'll reach out to Soren and we can engage some community partners and do that kind of visioning process like we did for 9th West and California. I think it was a good model, and we'll make sure that we engage the neighborhood to start answering those questions.
Hi, can I just jump in real quick? This is Kristen Riker. I'm with Public Lands, and I just want to thank Councilmember Johnston for bringing that up, that, you know, we're not really quite at the point to look at a long-term vision. We are right now in the process of looking at what does the community want here, and well, that'll even come after we decide what to do with the existing structures. So we're really excited to work with the community to understand more about what is wanted in that area if it becomes a park, and what that will look like. So we don't have that vision at this time. That's part of our master plan, and we're hoping to get your input.
And the goal of this engagement process is to really just inform the community of the state that it's in, and to do anything new, and the cost of entry into building a new park, which this would need to be rebuilt, are very, very high. And part of the restriction on the land is those costs of entry can't be high. It needs to be very much a community accessible use for all incomes, and it's cost prohibitive, and the engineering standards aren't there. And as you can see in the site, there's these key issues, and we want to make sure we communicate that to the community, and then, you know, let them give us their feedback, and that's the point we're at.
Thank you. I'm going to move us on the agenda. If you wouldn't mind sharing contact information and the link one more time for folks that want to get in touch. I'm going to move on. I see Detective Oliver here on the call. I'd like to welcome him.
Thanks, Turner. You'd mentioned a couple of things that you wanted me to go over as far as the numbers. It looks like violent crimes is rising throughout the city, and right now in District, can you hear me, Turner?
Yes, we can.
Okay, right now in District 2, it's gone up 7.8%. Violent crimes is, of course, your homicides, your robberies, your ag assaults. I noticed that the numbers for family ag assaults has risen quite a bit, and this looks like the numbers since COVID hit. So that's kind of where our numbers have kind of spiked, is since everybody was kind of forced into their own home. But that's where our numbers are looking as far as right now. Now that's across the city. I think let me check real quick, but I think across the city, the violent crime rate has risen by, I want to say 14%, but 18.4% since last year. So, you know, the District 2 is on the downside of that, but still that's a concern for anybody if you look at that. Motor vehicle thefts has probably risen the most outside of that, and that's 45.9% increase since last year. So we've seen over 100 more vehicle thefts this year than we did last year at this point. That's another concern, and especially as it starts getting colder, that's when usually we see a spike in motor vehicle thefts. So that's not encouraging to see it that high already, especially since it hasn't been cold. The other thing you wanted me to mention is that pretty much hit, Turner, what you wanted me to talk about as far as the numbers?
Yes, and we had concern from residents that they're hearing more gunshots, that there was a perception of increased property crime, and so I think you pretty well covered it.
Yes, there is an increased property crime. In fact, it's gone up 21.9% in property crime in District 2. So yes, there's been an increase in that as well. And gang activity has also increased, which is that the drive-by shootings, gunshots that the people are hearing. Those have gone up as well. So with the violent crime, and you know, I don't know if I'm going to step out on a branch and say that the COVID kind of had a lot to do with this, in the sense that it kept everybody inside, and now they're just wanting to get out and do things that probably they shouldn't be doing. But yeah, we are seeing an increased property crimes as well. And then the other thing you wanted me to mention was the shooting with the Lyndon Cameron incident. And I don't have any information to give you on that one. That's not an investigation that Salt Lake City is doing, I believe, and I don't even know which agency is doing that. But I do know that the 10-day period for the release of the body cam is Monday. I'm hearing rumblings that it could be out Friday, so it's either Friday or Monday that we'll see the footage on that. It's a sad situation, no matter the way you look at it. So it's something, you know, that it's not a good situation either way. We are a city of laws, and as you can see tonight, that a district attorney has filed some charges against one of our police officers in a canine incident. with that being said, we have to trust the judicial system. So if it goes through, and we'll just put our faith in the judicial system. Sometimes that's hard to do, but that's what we've got to do. Are there any questions, concerns that anybody has for me?
Can you give us any more, enlighten us more about the increase in gang activity? Can you give us more info on that?
I can get more access as far as the shots fired. The gang activity is not necessarily put on our comp stat report. That's kind of a different the gang aspect of it isn't put on there, but that still shows up with the ag assaults. That usually is where our ag assaults will be, non-family ag assaults, and it's gone up 18.5%. So I don't have any other information other than we know that a high majority of that is gang related. You'll see a shooting occur up in Rose Park, and the next couple of days you'll see a retaliation down in Glendale. So then it just bounces back and forth. Then you'll see one out in West Valley, then you'll see one in Taylorsville, and then we'll be back in Glendale. So it's a valley-wide thing. It's not just a city thing right now. But yeah, that's the gang aspect itself. I don't have a lot of information on it. I can look for maybe next month to get a little bit more information from the gang detectives on that.
Thanks, Detective Oliver. I'm going to move on. I'll make sure that we share your contact information in the chat. The last agenda item we have is for Sorenson Unity Center. And Ken, you get an extra big gold sticker for hanging out this long.
Well, thanks. And let me know if you can't hear me. I'm going to speak quickly, but I've got a bunch to cover, so I hope that's okay. My name's Ken Perko. I help manage the Sorenson Community Campus, which is the Sorenson Unity Center and the Multicultural Center between 9th West and 8th West on California Avenue. We have been in an interesting situation during COVID where we are a community center that has not necessarily been open entirely to the community, but I'm happy to announce that we are planning a phased reopening for a variety of recreation programs starting on October 5th. So that's kind of the big news. We have had ongoing programming throughout the past months, including the Salt Lake Donated Dental Clinic, which is still operating and has been operating throughout, as well as our Early Head Start program. We've had Youth City youth programming and teen programming in the summer. Those programs just started today, so there are youth programs during the day provided on the campus that are open to members of the community for kids ages 5 to 12 and then 13 to 18. We also have technology access available. That's Mondays and Tuesdays from 12 to 5:30 and Wednesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 4. One of the big developments that's just recently happened is we've been part of the City Connect program, which is free Wi-Fi and more than free, very easily accessible Wi-Fi on the campus. And so that's Wi-Fi that emanates from the Unity Center building and kind of goes outside so that there is a robust Wi-Fi signal across the Sorenson campus for folks who may not have good connections at home. They can come. We have it in the parking lot. We have it in the green space as well as within the building. The great thing being closed for the past few months is that we were able to really move forward with the construction project that was a major undertaking. It's been going on almost 9 months now, but we have brand new locker rooms and showers, a new kitchen, as well as a huge solar array up on the roof. And so that's very exciting, having that finished or so close to being finished. Still coming, we are going to be renovating the family changing rooms, as well as all the pool heating and air conditioning, as well as developing an outdoor classroom as part of some grant funding that we received earlier in the spring. So for me, the big news is that we do have a phased reopening starting on October 5th for most of the county programs. So the Sorenson campus is a partnership between Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County. Salt Lake County manages all the recreation programming. And so the fitness center, the swimming pool, the boxing gym, will all be starting to open on October 5th. The important thing is that they're going to follow the countywide recreation protocols, which is that folks will make a reservation for a time to come in and use part of the facility for a specific activity. And that information is all going to be on the website. The county's website is going to have an online reservation system. You can also call the Multicultural Center and the Unity Center to make appointments for any of the activities. Last thing I will say is that we are still, it is a requirement to wear a mask when you are in the building, but I'm hoping that people start coming in, make an appointment, and get back in the building, because it sure would be nice to have folks back in those buildings, or more folks, I guess. So thank you very much. Any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns?
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate it. And if you have anything you want to get out, links, anything like that, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll make sure they're captured and shared out. The last thing that I want to do is invite all of you to 2 upcoming events we have. So on Saturday, the Community Council is hosting the Great Glendale Cleanup. We are working with the Lowell Benyon Center at the University of Utah to do a neighborhood-wide pickup event. And we'll be identifying graffiti and other issues to address and clean up as things go on. And then the week after this Saturday, so Saturday the 26th, we are doing a paddle and pickup in partnership with the Jordan River Commission. Canoes and all the equipment are provided. All you have to do is bring your mask and yourself, and there's some other items on the registration. But we would encourage you to come and help us clean up the part of the Jordan River that is in our neighborhood. That's all I have for community council events. Does anyone have any community updates you'd like to share in the last couple of minutes before we end the meeting?
Yes.
Go, Charlotte.
I just wanted to mention that the Westview is still operating. We are always looking for community members, and that's people who live and work in the on the west side to contribute articles. You could, you know, I mean, it could be an opinion, it could be a commentary, it could, but anyway, we would just love to have your involvement. We don't have any paid reporters or writers, no paid staff at all, actually. So it's a volunteer thing. We're trying to keep this going, and we need more more involvement.
Thanks.
I'll leave my I'll put my email address in the chat in case anybody wants to contact me about a possible story. Okay.
Great. Anyone else? Soren, you have your hand up still. Is that just from the last time, or did you have something else?
No, I raised it again. And if I may, I wanted to just add to your couple of announcements about the cleanup events, which we're really grateful to the Glendale community to assist with those, both on the ground and in the river. I also wanted to highlight a couple of opportunities this month that are part of our Get to the River Festival. We've been doing paddling events each Sunday afternoon, and we have 2 coming up. One this Sunday, which will be from Winchester Park in Murray down to the Exchange Club Marina at 17th South. And then the following Sunday on the 27th, we'll be paddling from 17th South all the way up to Center Street and into the Legacy Nature Preserve in North Salt Lake. That information is on the Jordan River Commission Facebook page, and I'll put a link to that in the chat window as well. But if anybody's interested, if you've been on the trail but never paddled, it's a completely different experience to be in the river. And we'd just love to invite people to come join us as we paddle through your community.
Thanks, Soren. Evelyn.
Yes, we just have a question on what's going on at the skate park in Jordan Park. It looks like they're tearing down the old swimming pool today.
Andrew, do you happen to know the answer to that? If not, I can get that information.
I don't. I have the same question, Turner. So yeah, if you want to go ahead, or if I'll see if I can find out something early tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll make sure we get that out to you. With that, I just want to give a quick apology to the folks who've been commenting on Facebook. Normally, we would interject your comments in as speakers are going, but we ran behind today. I will follow up with each of you individually and get answers to your questions after this meeting. And then we're going to go ahead and end the live stream, but I want to thank you all for sticking for as long as this was. We did go over time, but we'll make sure that we get answers to the Facebook questions. Evelyn, I'll make sure that I get an answer to your question. And then if you have agenda items or ideas for things we should cover at our next meeting in October, please let me know. And thank you all for your time tonight.